Hello, I'm Faye Waterman, the Conversation Curator, and my guest today is Joanne Watson, and she works with animals. I'm going to get her to explain what she actually does. So, welcome, Joanne, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Faye, for the invitation. You know I love to chat.
Yes. Now, Joanne, you work in a special area with animals, all kinds of animals, but just talk a little bit about your background first, where you come from and how you got into what you're doing now.
The special area that I work in is working with animals and helping them and their people just live better lives. And I got to that because I grew up in country as New South Wales, in rural New South Wales, and went to school there and went to university in Canberra because it was a bit less scary than going to Sydney for university and for a little country girl. And I've always had horses and or dogs and or cats and or chickens or any other animal I can get my hands on in the backyard or close by that I can visit. I've always worked in and around and with horses particularly, and dogs as well, because horses and dogs just seem to go together. I went to university in Canberra. I worked in the public service and then moved down here to where I am now, which is in Bega in the far south coast of New South Wales in Australia. I've worked in the health industry. I've worked in private industry. I've worked, as I mentioned, in different areas of the public service. I've worked with Bega Cheese down here in the milk lab, as I originally trained as a scientist, and I was part of a team testing all of the milk coming in to make sure that it met the strict requirements. And the bestest jobs I've been when I've been working with animals and people and talking all day and finding out all about them.
Okay, you said you were a pillar practitioner. Now, explain so that people can understand, what is a pillar practitioner?
It's probably easiest if they just Google pillar practitioner, because it's all up on the websites and stuff. But in a nutshell, it just helps you to live an easier and better life. It just helps you get rid of all the stuff that you just don't need. As one person said, it just helps you get your shit sorted.
Good. That's a good way of explaining it.
Yeah.
Now, Joanne, you help animals, big, small, and you say horses. And you talked about working with animals because we stayed home for a couple of years with animals and we were around all the time. And now some of those animals have become anxious because they've been left on their own.
Yep.
So what do you do to help those animals feel more settled and calmer?
When animals are behaving badly, and it could be different for the way that your set of rules are could be different to my set of rules. So for each person animal combination, it can be slightly different. Because if you're a police officer, maybe you'd be very happy for a dog to sit at the front door and growl when people knock at the front door. But if you're a usual family, you wouldn't want the family dog to do that every time someone comes to the front door. So depending on what your rules are, I can help you and your pet or your animal work better together and more closely together. I work on the level that I work on is like for people with support dogs. And support dogs, I know that we've had a conversation before about support dogs and how quickly they can pick up messages that their person's body is giving, that if they're an epileptic or a diabetic and they're about to have an episode, usually it's a dog, picks up on those signals a lot earlier than our diagnostic tools and a lot earlier than the person themselves realizes that they're going to have an episode. And that just gives them a bit more of a window to actually do what they need to do, put their plan into action. And that's the level of the relationship that I work on, is the animal and the messages that flow between the animal and the person. And often the animal is behaving badly because they're trying to tell their person something. And it's just because they're not talking exactly the same language, then they try to be clearer and louder, and often that can just end disastrously, because it could lead to peeing or pooping inside, or barking or digging in the back garden, or all these things that we don't want our animals to do.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because during our couple of years of being in lockdown, and animals got so used to us all being at home too, then all of a sudden people are going back to work, and these animals are becoming stressed because they're being left on their own, and they've probably never been left on their own before.
A lot of them haven't, because they arrived in the house as puppies and kittens and stuff. So yeah, they've only ever known their humans around. But even aloof cats that were before COVID were quite happy to be at home by themselves, got used to us being around, and now some of them have decided, I really prefer my human to be around, to be at home rather than back at their workstation.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So how do you actually help them? What sort of things do you do to help both the owner of the animal and the animal themselves? And I'm going to call you an animal whisperer, really, because you kind of do things in a way where it is kind of like a whisperer, because your attention, your awareness is so high. You feel things and are aware of what's going on, whereas I, as an owner of a dog, am not. I know what my dog's like, but not to the extent that you can pick up on.
Thank you for that. That's very nice for you to say. Basically, I talk to the owner. So we have a conversation, and I ask you what's going on, and then I do some testing, and I tell you what the testing reveals, and you tell me whether or not these things are going on, and, whether it makes sense or not, and then we clear it. And because I've talked to you, it works on the pet, because you have that relationship, you have that connection. See, I couldn't work with you and your neighbour's dog unless you had a really good connection with your neighbour's dog. So it has to be a really good person-animal connection. It can't just be, you're annoyed with the dog across the street because it barks at night, and so therefore talking to you wouldn't have any effect on that dog. But talking to that dog's owner could quite possibly
make the difference. And you said you work with horses. So what sort of things would you need to do with a horse? Because I see horses, and they're, they have this freedom out in the paddock, and they can roam.
Some of them like that freedom a little bit too much, and they decide they don't want to be caught or saddled or bridled, or if you do get on, then they don't really want you on them. Well, some do. And if you've eliminated any painful things or badly fitting equipment, or training issues itself, then it's just the same thing. I have a talk to the horses. Can be a little bit different, because they can have an owner and a trainer and a rider and a groom, and they can all be different people. But if you're like me, it's all rolled up in one. So you need to talk to the person that is the most relevant in that situation. So if they were bucking someone off, then it would be, if there was one main rider, it would be probably the rider that you would need to talk to. If there's another person that also handles the horse, then it might have to be them, just depending on what the actual issue was. But But once you talk to the person that is the correct person to talk to, it just kind of melts away in the animal because the situation's resolved.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? And
I know of
what?
one horse that we were working with that didn't want to wear the rugs. If it just even brand new rugs, would just rip them off and destroy them. When I worked with them, I asked if there was a red rug that they had, and they said yes, but it's really grotty and old, and we don't want to use it. That was the rug the horse wanted, and kept it on.
Really?
Yeah. I figure I'd prefer the nice new clean rug, but no, that wanted the old manky rug.
Yeah. Yeah. And they do know, pets know, they sense things. They're a bit like humans, really. We don't think about it like that, but they are a bit like humans, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And I don't go into colour therapy much, but maybe it needed the vibration of the colour red to help it with something. I don't know. But it wanted that red rug.
Mm. Joanne, what would you say to someone who is struggling a little bit with their dog, their pet? It could be a cat, it could be a dog, it could be a horse, it could be anything, and they were struggling a little bit because they don't know what to do with it. What would you say to them?
I'd say don't give up on it. Give me a call and we can have a chat.
Okay, so how can they get in contact with you then?
It's probably better to contact me through email because I've lost so many phones out in the paddock. I tend to leave them in the house now, so I'm not always right on my phone. But I do check my emails fairly regularly. Jo Watson, JOWATSON 0606 @gmail.com. And my mobile is 0424 522 167.
And even if you're not near your phone, and they can actually leave a message and you will get back to them when you,
a voice message or a text message is fine. I will get back to them.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful learning even more about what you do.
It's really good fun talking to you each time, Faye. I love it.
Thank you, Joanne. I'm Faye Waterman, the Conversation Curator, and I'll be back again soon. Bye for now.